Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you are tuned into the Empower Yourself studio. Today, we are getting into something that, well, it causes a lot of stress for so many people. Money. We all know that feeling, right? Financial struggles. It's
Yeah.
more than just numbers. It's that sense of missed chances, dreams kind of stuck on hold.
Absolutely. And, a lot of that anxiety comes from following, frankly, outdated advice.
hmm
For years, we've inherited these really strict, kind of rigid rules about personal finance. They might have made sense decades ago, maybe,
Uh-huh.
but today, following them blindly can leave you stressed out, maybe not building wealth like you could be, and just missing out.
Totally agree. So our goal today is, let's call it financial liberation. We've looked at a whole range of sources, modern thinkers like Ramit Sethi, timeless folks like Andrew Tobias, to really pinpoint 10 common rules you probably need to break. And crucially, 5 essential principles that, well, these are the ones you really need to keep. They're your foundation.
Exactly. It's about getting smarter with our money, gaining some clarity. So let's dive in and start challenging some of these old ideas. Maybe we start with what I call the deprivation trap.
Yeah, let's do it. Myth number 1, and this one causes so much burnout. The idea that you absolutely must save every single penny. Perpetual austerity, basically. This old way of thinking makes any discretionary spending feel like sinful. Why is that not just miserable, but maybe even bad for your finances?
Well, fundamentally, it's just not sustainable. People aren't wired for constant deprivation. It builds this deep resentment toward your own financial plan. You feel like you're always fighting yourself, holding back on everything. Eventually, you're likely to just rebel, toss the old system out. We need a shift towards what Ramit Sethi calls conscious spending. His whole thing is, look, automate your savings and investments first. Get that handled. Once that's done, then you give yourself permission. Spend, even extravagantly, he says, on the things you genuinely love, and then be ruthless about cutting costs on things you don't actually care about. That alignment, spending on your values, that's what makes it stick.
I like that. Moving away from guilt and towards, permission. And speaking of guilt,
Yeah.
we have to talk about the lattes, right? That leads perfectly into another piece of, frankly, unhelpful advice, the whole latte factor. The idea that cutting out your daily coffee or other small treats is the magic key to financial success.
Well, the latte factor, it's such a classic misdirection, isn't it? Obsessing over these tiny micro expenses. It completely misses the big picture. It's like worrying about pennies while dollars are flying out the window. Sure, small things can add up over time, but real financial freedom, that's built by tackling the major expenses. Think about the work Vicki Robin and Joe Dominguez did in Your Money or Your Life. They talked about understanding your life energy, making conscious choices. But the real leverage comes from optimizing those big recurring costs. Housing, transportation, maybe even education choices. Not just agonizing over a $5 coffee that might actually bring you a bit of joy.
Makes sense. Okay, let's switch gears a bit. From saving and spending to debt. This topic always splits opinions, doesn't it? The old rule, pretty much gospel for many, is myth number 2. Avoid all debt. Period. Full stop. But if we're aiming to be financially strategic, does avoiding all debt really make sense anymore?
It's a massive oversimplification. And honestly, avoiding certain kinds of debt can seriously hinder your ability to build wealth. We absolutely have to differentiate. There's bad debt and there's good debt.
Yeah.
Bad debt, that's usually high-interest consumer stuff. Credit cards buying things that lose value, that's the stuff that sinks you. But good debt, that's different. It's typically low-interest borrowing used strategically to acquire assets, things that might go up in value or generate income.
Okay, hold on. So you're suggesting it might be smart to keep some debt. That feels really counterintuitive to a lot of the advice out there. What about peace of mind? Isn't being debt-free the ultimate goal?
It's a common goal, and the peace of mind is real.
Yeah.
But look at Robert Kiyosaki's ideas in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He explains how wealthy people often use good debt. Think a sensible mortgage, maybe a business loan as leverage. If you can borrow money at, say, 4% and use it to acquire an asset that reliably returns 8% or more, well, you've used debt to build wealth faster. It requires careful management, absolutely. It's not risk-free. But calculated use of good debt is often essential for big moves, like buying a home.
Which brings us neatly to the next myth, actually. Myth number 3. You absolutely must buy a house as soon as you possibly can, because renting is just throwing money away. We hear that constantly.
Yeah, the renting is dead money line. Home ownership is great for stability, no question. But it's not always the best financial move straight out of the gate. Andrew Tobias pointed this out years ago in The Only Investment Guide You'll Ever Need. People often gloss over the true costs. You've got high transaction fees, ongoing maintenance, property taxes, and crucially, a huge chunk of your money becomes illiquid. tied up. You can't easily access it or invest it elsewhere.
Right, stuck in the house.
Exactly. Renting gives you flexibility. And sometimes, if you invest the difference between what owning would cost and your rent, you might actually come out ahead financially. It's often more of a lifestyle choice than purely a financial optimization, especially early on.
Okay, sticking with housing. Let's say someone is ready to buy, but they run into myth number 6. You absolutely need to save up that massive 20% down payment. The usual logic is you have to avoid PMI, right? Private mortgage insurance.
Right. And that advice, while well-intentioned maybe, often leads to years of delay. Years where you could have been building equity. PMI, yes, it's an extra fee if your down payment is under 20%. We'd ideally avoid it long term. But think about it. Waiting several extra years to save up that full 20%? What happens in a rising market? Property values go up. Interest rates might go up too. That delay can be incredibly costly.
So the PMI might be less expensive than waiting.
Often, yes. There are modern loan options, FHA, VA loans, even conventional loans with just 3–5% down. They let you get into the market sooner. The cost of paying PMI for a few years can frequently be much less than the appreciation you gain by owning the home earlier. You start building that equity right away.
Okay, so let's say they've bought the house, maybe with a lower down payment, then the conservative advice kicks in again with myth number 9. Always pay off your mortgage early. I get the appeal. That feeling of being totally mortgage-free must be amazing, but what does the math say?
This is where finance and psychology really collide head-on. The emotional pull is huge. But mathematically, it often points the other way. If you have a mortgage with a really low interest rate, let's say 3 or 4%, like many people locked in recently, and you could reasonably expect to earn a higher average return by investing, maybe 7 to 10% historically, in a diversified index fund. Well, every extra dollar you throw at that low-interest mortgage is potentially costing you investment growth. That's the opportunity cost.
Can you break that down a bit, like with an example? Say I have an extra $500 a month. Pay down the 4% mortgage faster, or invest it expecting, say, 8%.
Okay, let's think long-term, like over 20 years.
Sure.
The difference could be pretty staggering. If you put that extra $500 a month towards the 4% mortgage, you save on interest, sure. You pay it off faster. It feels good. But if you instead invested that same $500 a month and it averaged an 8% return over those 20 years, you'd likely have somewhere close to $300,000 in that investment account.
What?
Yeah. That extra mortgage payment might have shaved off, a few years?
Yeah.
But it could cost you hundreds of thousands in potential growth from compounding. That's the real tension. The emotional win of debt freedom, which someone like Dave Ramsey really emphasizes, versus the potential mathematical optimization.
That definitely puts the conservative choice in a different light. Makes it seem potentially expensive. Okay, let's shift focus to investing itself. A huge barrier for beginners is myth number 8. You need to be some kind of financial genius, a stock market guru, to invest successfully.
That is just completely false today, honestly. The development of low-cost index funds, ETFs, it's totally changed the game. It's democratized investing. You do not need to be picking individual stocks. Think about the mantra from Vanguard's founder, John Bogle. Don't look for the needle. Buy the haystack.
Buy the haystack. I like that.
It's simple. Invest in broad market index funds. They consistently beat the vast majority of fancy, high-fee, actively managed funds over the long haul. Expertise in picking stocks just isn't necessary for most people.
But, okay, the pendulum can swing too far, right? People hear diversify and maybe overdo it out of fear. That leads us to myth number 4. Always diversify your investments across tons and tons of different things. Spread it super thin.
Yeah, that can become what some people call diversification.
Diversification.
Exactly. Spreading yourself too thin. While diversification is absolutely essential, you don't want all your eggs in one basket. Making it overly complex doesn't usually help. It can actually dilute your returns and just makes managing everything a huge headache. Warren Buffett has a great quote on this. Something like, "Wide diversification is only required when investors do not understand what they are doing."
Ouch. Okay.
For the average person, smart diversification usually means keeping it simple. A few broad index funds covering, say, the U.S. market, international markets, maybe some bonds. That's often enough, not dozens of niche things. Keep it simple, keep it broad.
Got it. Simple and broad. Okay, let's talk about safety nets, emergency funds. Myth number 7 deals with where you keep it. Your emergency fund must only be in a high-yield savings account, period.
Okay, the first layer of your emergency fund, yes, absolutely. That immediate buffer, say, 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses you might need access to tomorrow. That has to be in cash. Liquid. Safe. Non-negotiable. But What if you're building a larger safety net? Maybe you want 9 months, 12 months, or even more for extra security. Keeping all of that larger amount parked in a savings account, even a high-yield one, means you're basically guaranteed to lose purchasing power over time due to inflation. The interest rarely keeps up.
So for that bigger cushion, that second layer beyond the immediate 3-6 months, what's a smarter approach?
Well, someone like J.L. Collins, author of The Simple Path to Wealth, suggests optimizing every dollar. Once that primary cash fund is solid, you could think about a tiered approach for the rest. That larger chunk, the 6 to 12-month part, could potentially go into something still very conservative and easily sellable, but with a chance for slightly better returns, maybe something like short-term bond ETFs. They aim to combat inflation a bit better while staying relatively safe and accessible if you really need them.
A tiered approach. That's interesting. Okay, last myth, and this one involves relationships. Myth number 10, often coming from a place of wanting independence, maybe fear, your money absolutely must be kept totally separate from your partner's money.
Yeah, the separate everything approach.
Yeah.
While having separate accounts for, personal fund money can be healthy in a relationship, keeping all finances completely separate in a committed partnership,
Yeah.
it can really hinder progress. It makes it hard to work together on big shared goals, like retirement or buying major assets together. It's like having two ships trying to reach the same destination, but sailing independently.
Creates friction, probably.
It can. Modern relationship finance experts often suggest more of a joint vision, separate spending kind of model.
Yeah.
You have shared goals, transparency about the big picture, shared accounts for shared expenses and goals, but maybe still maintain some separate funds for individual discretionary spending. It fosters teamwork, transparency, shared responsibility, all things that usually help couples reach their financial goals faster together.
Okay, wow. We have just dismantled 10 pretty common, often limiting pieces of financial advice, hopefully helping you move away from some unnecessary stress and rigidity. Now, let's flip it. Let's build that solid foundation. What are the 5 absolutely non-negotiable, timeless, universal principles? The rules you really must keep for financial freedom.
Right. These are the anchors. The rules based on behavior, consistency, the ones that just work decade after decade. Rule number 1, pay yourself first.
Simple phrase, but what does it mean practically?
It means a set portion of every dollar you earn goes directly into your savings and investment accounts before you do anything else. Before bills, before spending. It's the first thing that happens. George S. Clason nailed this in The Richest Man in Babylon ages ago. A part of all you earn is yours to keep, not less than 1/10. Making this automatic. It's probably the single biggest factor in building wealth over time. Okay, rule number 2, live below your means. This is the absolute engine of wealth creation.
Sounds simple, but it can be tough, right? Especially when you get a raise or something. Lifestyle creep is real.
Oh, absolutely. It's constant discipline. But look at the research from The Millionaire Next Door by Stanley and Danko. They found most millionaires didn't necessarily have crazy high incomes. What they had was discipline, frugality in a smart way. They consistently spent less than they earned, regardless of income level. That creates the surplus. And without that surplus, rule number 1, pay yourself first. Can't happen.
Got it. Okay, rule number 3, have an emergency fund.
Absolutely non-negotiable. We touched on this. This is your financial shock absorber, your safety net. That 3 to 6 months of readily available cash for essential expenses. It stops unexpected life stuff, a job loss, a medical emergency, car trouble from completely derailing your entire financial life. It prevents you from having to go into high-interest debt just to survive. The peace of mind it provides is invaluable.
Crucial. Okay, rule number 4 is key, especially since we agreed not all debt is inherently evil. Understand and control your debt.
Yes, control is the operative word here. This rule complements breaking the avoid all debt myth. It means being incredibly intentional about any borrowing, know exactly why you're borrowing, know the interest rate, have a clear, aggressive plan to wipe out any high-interest, bad debt as fast as possible. And if you do choose to use low-interest, good debt strategically, like for a mortgage or maybe education, you manage it diligently. You make sure the asset is performing or the education is paying off. You stay in control.
Right, active management. Okay, and the final essential rule, rule number 5, invest consistently and for the long term.
This is where the real magic happens. Compounding. You absolutely will put your surplus money, the money you save, by living below your means and paying yourself first to work. It needs to grow faster than inflation eats away at its value. And again, as J.L. Collins really hammers home, the strategy for most people is simple. Invest that surplus consistently, month after month, year after year. Put it into low-cost, diversified index funds. Then, crucially, ignore the day-to-day market noise. Let time and the power of compounding do the heavy lifting over decades. Patience is key.
What a fantastic breakdown. We've kind of unlearned some bad habits and relearned the fundamentals. By challenging those old, often rigid financial dogmas, you really do gain flexibility, a strategic edge. And ultimately, this isn't just about getting the highest possible return, is it? It's about finding peace of mind, making money a tool that empowers your life instead of being a constant source of stress.
Exactly. And, we talked quite a bit about that tension, that versus the psychology, like with paying off the mortgage early versus investing. The mathematical optimization might say invest, while the emotional pull says pay off the debt.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe a final thought for you to consider is this. In your own financial life, right now, how are you consciously balancing those two things? How are you weighing the drive to maximize every potential dollar of return against your personal need for peace of mind and security? Finding your right balance in that trade-off, that's probably the truest definition of real sustainable financial freedom.